just wanted to give everyone an update. We did have the open house. We had a few people attend the open house. The big question during the open house was how much are the taxes? So I inquired at the county level and asked them if they could give us some kind of an assessment to see what those taxes would be. And they did that. They got back to me very quickly. The problem is they valued, for assessed values, they valued them extremely high. They have valued the two townhouses together. They put a market value of $894,120. And the dormitory, Ball Hall, they valued at $1,263,950. Obviously, this is unrealistic. No one will purchase those with that kind of valuation. So I proceeded to contact someone who could appeal. We have 40 days to appeal the assessment value at the courthouse. I had the solicitor send them a letter saying we would like to do that. Obviously, we will never be able to sell these properties if we don't. So I have contacted Rick Beath out of Franklin, who will be doing all the comparison work. He will put all that together for the city, and we will go to Meadville for an appeal process. Truly believe, and so does Mr. Beath, that they will drastically be reduced. Obviously, they're not worth that if we couldn't market it for $200,000. So that's where we're at with that. Still hope to have this totally finished up before year end. That's the goal, so that we can talk about it in our next, probably in the December work session. If I can get this all squared away, we can talk about whether we want to rebid and what price we want to rebid at, or do we just want to put them on the market. The law says we may rebid. It doesn't say we must. I guess that's something for everyone to think about, how we want to handle that come December. At that time, I hope to have the values, the assessed values, and be able to make the public comment on how much those taxes actually are. So when we do decide how we want to handle it, we'll have a positive number.
So you believe that there's still some interest, right? But this here is probably...
There is. I showed them actually 2 days to a gentleman who's a contractor. He was very interested. But again, he said until he knows the number on the taxes, he couldn't possibly commit to anything.
Larry, is there any way we can earmark the proceeds from the sale of this for a specific line item in next year's budget or a future budget? I'm thinking airport. We have a few grants that need matching funds.
I know that was our original intention, and I still believe that can be done. Could it not, Rich? Could that be earmarked for a specific project?
Yes.
Because we have the obstruction grant we have to finish in the airport. We have engineering on the runway rehab, and then actually the runway rehab itself is coming in over $600,000.
Which at a 5% match is $30,000. So
right.
We definitely need to allocate some pretty good money to those
How would we go
projects.
about doing that?
I think we need to do that allocation probably, I'd say we'd be okay in the December meeting, right, Rich?
Right.
To allocate that. At that time, we'll have a little bit better idea where we're at with the sale.
And that would it wouldn't be a resolution, just be a vote.
No, I think you'd do a resolution.
Okay.
And could that still be done even though the property was not sold at that time?
It could be done for the future,
Okay.
if and when sold.
Any other comments, questions? Excuse me.
Nothing else?
Moving on, fire department group bids.
As council is aware of, I sent you all an email when this situation occurred, but I wanted to let the public know. The fire department roof rehab, we did a modification to the CDBG grant to allocate that money from the future bridge project to the fire department roof. We have never done a modification to CDBG before. Obviously, we've only had control of CDBG for a couple of years. Well, during this process, what we had read and understood, and it very plainly said we did not have to do an environmental review to actually switch this project, the project, or doing a roof obviously doesn't have much to do with the environment. However, once we went out to bid And we got the bids in, and you folks approved the bid. They came back to us and said, well, even though you don't have to do the environmental review, you have to file the paperwork. Well, of course, we did not do so. And they said, well, if you didn't do that, you have to rebid this project, which was horrible, because now everyone knows the value of the bids, because we announced them in a public meeting. However, we had to do it. We had absolutely no choice. So we put it out to bid. I think some of you probably saw it in the paper. You might have wondered why we bidding the same project. Well, that's the reason. As it turned out, the same contractor who won the bid the first time, he bid the exact same amount, so he lost no money. He had no other bidders bid, and he gets the project. We just need to re-award it via vote at next Tuesday's meeting. And he can move on with the project. It probably delayed it a couple of weeks. Obviously, he can't do anything until he's re-awarded the bid. So we're back on track to do it. We still, there again, it's not a long project, but we certainly hope to be well underway within a few weeks.
But I understand that they said it was okay when you first put it in, and then,
Well, we actually even sent an email, have we done everything that's required? And they responded, yes. Well, then, after the bidding's all done, we received another email saying, you didn't comply with this. So we
all
just
that for a couple blank
had
sheets
to
of
make it
paper.
work, for one piece of paper with a date on it, basically. But it's fixed now, we're moving forward.
Good. It happens.
Any other comments, questions?
If we vote on the thing, Bill, what time frame have you been in contact with a contractor? I mean, how much did we let you? A couple of weeks? Are they gonna be starting?
Well, it will depend on how long it takes to build the trusses. He had to naturally stop the order on the trusses until, make sure that he ended up getting the bid. So they're wood trusses, as we discussed before, so I don't anticipate them to be real long, but I'd say we probably delayed the project start of a couple of weeks, maybe 3.
And we're all prepared for weather situations when it's opened and.
Right, we are finding spots to store our engines while the project's being done, which we had to do anyway, even if it had been done this time of year.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving on, is seed dead?
Excuse me?
Is seed dead?
Well, I can discuss that.
Okay,
Yeah.
please do. Lighting ordinance.
Seasonal lighting ordinance, which we all know we've discussed in the past year many times. I was asked to put this on the agenda and try to get this lighting ordinance passed by the year end. I can't legally do that. The time period, because it's zoning change, there is advertising requirements, there's requirements from first reading to second reading. It's just not legally possible to make that happen between now and then.
Can we still, I mean, what's the requirement like between the readings?
I think it's 30 days between,
Public hearing.
there's a public hearing first that has to be advertised in a couple publications.
Takes about 90 days.
The total process is like 90 days.
Gotcha. Okay.
Excuse me, Diana, I don't have any verbiage on that ordinance. Could you print out something? I'm sure council got some kind of
Right,
packet.
we have like 800 lighting ordinances.
Thank you.
Tammy.
On the one that, which one? We literally have 7.
Yeah.
I mean, we never really landed on one particular final one.
I would suggest the initial drafted by our good folks at the planning commission, as well as the latest version that came out of your office.
Okay, I'll see what I can find.
Thank you.
Bill, I have a question on that.
Sure.
At one time it was discussed about, Erie was going through some of this. Did we find out any information, just as background, what they were doing, how they were handling some things?
members for their service, and I'm glad to see debt being reduced, balanced budgets, city-owned properties being sold back into the private sector. This creates new tax revenue, which lessens the burdens on existing taxpayers, and I hope that the new council, city manager, and mayor will continue this trend. Being a township supervisor in an adjoining township, I know what it takes to be in public service. The reason I'm here is I own some property that was recently sold by the Redevelopment Authority, and it is right up against the city line over on the east side. Two issues. The easiest one is at the bottom here, which is Watson Road. If you're taking the street between city limits and the roller rink coming up, just about 200-300 feet, Watson Road then turns to the left and comes right behind city limits and right back down beside city limits. Well, if you stop right there and look to the right where they landed the logs from the Redevelopment Authority timber cut, Watson Road actually on paper, it's never been improved by the city, extends to the city line to the right. They improved it maybe 100 to 150 feet in, but they stopped there. There's a little stream that comes down over the hill. I own about 150 feet of frontage right up against the city line. This is a survey by Joe Fox. I have no access to that bit of frontage. It's a nice building site there. I'd like to see some new revenue coming into the city, but I can't get to it. So either, there's two options. The city continues that improvement another couple hundred feet to get to my property, or if the city sold me the 50-foot strip, obviously they'd have to keep access to the adjoining landowner. I don't know if he needs it. He has road frontage down on 27, but you would want to do that because it borders a different landowner before it gets to me. I would develop the rest of the driveway to my property. So either one's fine with me, but the bottom line is there's a city street that's not improved and I can't get to my property that has frontage on it until one of the two things happens. The more difficult issue is up at the north end, which is the second property I bought. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the water tower up off of Rockwood. Larry and I talked about this. Right at the end, where you turn down into White Oak there's a gate. And then behind that gate, there's a fairly narrow blacktop street that's right up at the upper edge of the 50-foot city street. That's the extension of Rockwood that was never improved. And it's maybe 10 to 12 feet on the north side of that 50-foot strip, and then as it goes in, it veers to the left up into the city street. And I've drawn this on here, or up into the city property. They own about 10 acres around the water tower. And then right where it turns almost a 90 to go up into the water tower, there's a second gate. I have quite a bit of very nice buildable frontage on that street, but again, I can't access it, not just because of the gate, because there's trees through the whole 50-foot strip. It's never been developed at all. Also, I've got a nice building site along the right-hand side of the water tower, but because the corner goes down over a hill and then back up, I can't get to this section over here for a building site unless I could get maybe a 40 or 50 foot long right-of-way across the top of the hill, just going from this side of my property to this side to get over to these building sites. Beautiful looking down over a wooded valley. There's probably 2 building sites in each spot. I'll pass this around if you have any questions. So either the same situation there, either if I could buy it, this strip from the city, I would go to the expense of just building a drive-in and accessing this, and then I would still need that 40-foot long right-of-way, maybe 30 feet wide, something like that. Or if the city wanted to continue to develop that street to the end there, to the top of the hill, that'd be fine too. So, you know, that's the 2 issues. One down here at the south end, there are 2 up here at the north end. So I'll pass this around. Be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Clear, I'm a little disadvantaged until I see this thing there.
Down at the bottom, I'm sure the guys cutting the timber up there got permission to use that city street, so they've actually developed a section of it down at the bottom. All I need to do is just extend it over to my parking garage, because I can't do that because it's a 50-foot strip owned by the city. So they must have got permission to do what they did, and they they've gravelled in, like I said, 100 to 150 feet. It just needs to go about another 150 feet to get to my property.
These are properties that the city owns then?
I have not looked into this lower part that he's referring to. I have looked into the part up by our tank. And my only comment on that part is that there is a major water line coming from that tank down the center of that road. I think though that he's referring to the right of that road, not on the road.
Right.
Because we discussed that, and there is a major water line, and our water people will think that was a mistake for us to have anything driving over top of that line. And like I say, I believe he would be referring to, which would be to the right of our blacktop, actually going in.
You know, the city has 50 feet there, and they're only using maybe 15 feet of that right at the very upper end. And like I said, as it goes, it veers to the left up into the 10 acres where the water tower is. So it's even, as you just get in there a little ways, it's even off of the 50-foot strip, and the rest of it's all trees.
So if you,
Excuse me.
I'm looking down a little bit further down the road here.
There's a gate here,
Does
and
this-
then another gate
Okay.
here.
Does a city need to get through this gate or whatever like that? I think I remember seeing the gate up there.
Oh, we absolutely use that gate.
Okay.
We're required by law to have a gate around that tank. After
Right.
9/11, it's even more of a requirement
Oh, I
for
know.
security reasons.
So,
Is there any way around it without running over the water line?
Yeah, if you went to right of that, which the gate just kind of is across the driveway. It's, the second gate secures it totally. The first gate just kind of blocks the drive so people don't go back there.
Okay.
So, yeah, it is possible probably to put some kind of a road, to the right of that entry gate.
no.
What would you say, it needs 10 feet, 12 feet wide, something like that?
Yeah, I'd say it's
So there's a good 30 to 35 feet to the right of the gate that's just all trees.
Okay, which does not have the water line under it.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking here, and the wheels sometimes slow down a little bit, it's cold out. Would this be something that we would, and Rich would have to look into this thing here, I suppose? We get this, he can make a proposal to us, we can review the thing, and come back, whether we would deem him right-of-way access, whether we, if this is going to be a development, does it have to become a street then? You're gonna need water and sewer up there?
Well, there already is. There's houses right beside that gate there
Okay.
on both sides.
Did you have that survey?
Yeah. That's basically, that's from Joe Fox.
Do you have those big survey maps that you could get me so that I could have a copy of that to present to them?
You mean the assessment maps? I mean, you'd have that.
No, regular survey maps. That
Oh, the
show
full size one?
Yeah, the full size.
I can get that from him.
Because that would certainly help us look at it.
The reason I brought that is because the full-size map would be of each section, that shows everything on one page there.
That way they could look at it, other than at this meeting when they have time to really study it and go up and take a look and see what we're talking about.
Right.
I personally think that we need to review this. I mean, there's opportunities that for new homes to be built. That's your intent, correct?
Homes, and this one down here would be nice for a camp because it's all surrounded by woods. And there's a little stream running down through here and, home or a camp, but, either.
So you say this Watson Road, they have improved it down there?
Yeah, the guys that were cutting the timber, they gravelled it up in. I mean, they were using the majority of it because they were right up against my boundary line cutting timber. So it went in quite a ways, but when they finished, they didn't, the back end of it, as it gets closer to mine, they didn't do anything with that, but they really fixed up the first probably 100 to 150 feet of it. I mean, you can drive a car right up in. So I would just need to extend it. If they got permission to do that, I would think I'd be able to get permission to extend that and improve it another 150 feet to get to my property.
Would that incur us to have to take and snow plow it and street sweep it and other things then too?
If there was houses back there, yes. I mean, we'd have to take ownership of that if it's indeed we own it. And like I say, I guess I wasn't even aware we owned that street. I didn't think the street went back.
Yeah, I got all the maps.
I thought that belonged to the private owner.
No, I got all the maps out the courthouse, and that city street extended to the city line at one time, it was just never.
But has it ever been vacated and, I'd have to look at the ordinance, if it was vacated, then it's not ours.
I couldn't find any record of that, or Rockwood extending and being vacated. They were all laid out at one time, just that end of it never got developed, so the city just never did anything as far as taking care of or maintaining.
Yeah, I agree, on Rockwood, we wouldn't have vacated because obviously they have a water line.
Right.
I honestly would have to look into the lower one, I don't know, I don't know that.
But if this is truly city property, that puts these on the books more than just a blank property if somebody builds on it, right?
Oh, yeah,
Develops.
yeah.
And
So I'm assuming the city owns a 50-foot strip there is what I'm saying. And I mean, if they sold it, the 50-foot strip, and I just use it as a driveway, then obviously the city would have no cost and I would maintain it
which was the 50-foot strip?
down here at the bottom. This right here. This is the intersection.
Okay.
They gravel back to about, right in here somewhere, because they landed the logs right here when they cut all this timber.
So if the city sold him that right away, that property there, then we wouldn't be obligated to have to take a plow?
Correct. Then it would become private property.
And that's the city line right there, and that's
And
Oil Creek.
obviously, we're not using.
Well, does
it.
anybody need to come down through here, Mr. Clement? Come up this yellow area? here?
That's my property. The yellow's mine. That's what I want to access. I want to be able to get to it.
You wanna get down so you can come up this way,
Yeah, there's a nice building site right here.
not this one here.
No, and like I said, obviously if the city sold me that strip, they would keep access to this homeowner, this landowner. He owns land on the other side too, and Route 27 is just right here, and he has a lot of frontage on 27. But he also would need frontage on that too, so the 50-foot strip, if I bought it from the city, you would just put in the deed, that this landowner has access to it.
How deep in, Keith, does it go before it becomes no longer in the city limits?
I'm guessing that's about 300 feet, and like I said, they gravelled in a good 100 to 150 feet of it.
Oh, okay.
They
so
did
that
a
would
lot of
take
work
them
there.
out to the limit.
Yeah, they cleaned the ditches and, they did a nice job when they finished up there. I mean, for a while it was a mess, as you know, it was February, March, April. And so they've already done half the work. I would just like to extend it back so I could get to that bit of frontage I have there.
And it would be wide enough that if need be, you could have fire access.
Oh, sure.
Truck access and all.
Yeah, it's a 50-foot strip. I mean, I saw that in my deed.
Well, if anybody asks my opinion would be, we need to get a little more information and see what we can do. I mean, I see something, but like you said, is it city property? Is it? Mr. Klingler says that it may be. We just need to work on that and see what we can do as a proposal.
Yeah, I can look into, rather, the low part, rather indeed, it has been vacated or we still own it or where we're at with that.
But I agree that we don't need to be going over the water line and stuff like that. That's one of the things that we tried to do out of the waterworks. So businesses weren't going to go over that. And you need to have the ability that if the water line ever decided to go, typically you have easement areas that you've got the ability to put 1, 2 water lines as replacements for a parallel line. So,
The line is almost right in the middle of that street, that blacktop area. And it's a big line, so I can't remember, it's 3 or 4 feet, but it's a big line.
Yeah, see, the city owns this property here.
okay.
So the line runs right along the edge of the 50-foot strip, and then it bends up up towards the water tower, so it actually leaves the 50-foot strip. I need to the right of that, just to get to the property, because I have no other access to that piece. And there's at least 2 beautiful building sites here looking down into here, and then there's another 2 over here that look down into the valley towards, I think it's Campbell Road over there. And like I said, that point is down over a hill, and it's down there a good 150 feet. It's pretty steep. If I just had a 30-foot wide right of way, maybe it's 40 feet across or 50 feet to get to here, I would put the drive in, and there's a couple nice building sites here.
Who did you buy this property from?
Redevelopment authority.
And they never did anything with it, they never,
Well, they cut the timber on all 3 pieces.
Oh, they timbered it and
how did the logging company?
I think that piece there, from what I understand from the redevelopment authority, the owner to the north was one of the 2 guys that bought the timber, and he took it out across his property.
oh, I see.
I was at their meeting a week ago Monday, they said that they sold it, to them because they didn't have access. Now, I don't know why they sold the other two pieces like that, because they did have access, but that's what I was told. So they didn't take the timber out on any street from that, they took it up across the neighbor apparently.
Well, I'm sure that we can work with Rich on language and things we need.
Yeah, if you could get me some kind of a survey or map so I can get, I'll copy it if you want, and
Okay.
I'll have a copy so we can get a better look at it. I can have them stop in and realize exactly what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
I had him do some work for me because I have an adjoining piece that goes up behind those apartment buildings there on, I guess that's Spruce Street. And he just surveyed the piece between mine and Petroleum, and they're in there cutting timber on that right now, so.
You saying there's another piece that you're gonna need something like this done to, or?
No,
Oh,
no. But they sold the property to the adjoining landowners, and this is my piece here, so that's how I was able to bid on this.
I remember seeing a map similar to this before where people wanted to buy the.
Right, yeah,
adjacent-
that's all part of the same project, yeah, these homeowners here, bought the lots behind them there, between their lots and the power line. Just to extend their lots, make it a little bigger. So we're getting some non-taxable property back on the tax rolls.
Oh, that's great.
And I wanna increase that, because all those properties just a year ago were not on the tax rolls, so now they are. And to get, a few new homes up there, that's why I'm here.
Well, those are very nice homes in that area too,
Mhm.
so this would continue on with that.
That's right. Yeah, cause I think you guys have a copy, I know I gave it to Tim, so,
I have a copy of that,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, alright. I'll see if I can get the larger maps of each of those two properties and break
All
them
right,
too.
that'd be great.
Thanks.
Is there a time frame on this thing? Or I know
I mean,
you'd like it ASAP, but.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, the quicker I can get to be able to use these two streets, the quicker I can get moving with the subdivision and get the plans rolling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, resolution number 22, 2019, PennDOT signatures for drop grants.
This has to do with the airport grants. We need to, in order for them to pay out money on the grants, council has to designate certain people who are the signers to release that money. And we have to pass a resolution naming what those positions are, who those people will be. It's a little bit difficult right now because we don't know exactly who's gonna be here. So as you can see from the sample resolution here, I discussed it with our solicitor and I also discussed it with the people at the dot grants, PennDOT. And they suggested that I put several different positions on here due to the unknown. So what I have tentatively put on here, that the signer can be either the mayor or the city manager or the city solicitor or the finance director. I figure that pretty much covers it. I don't want to slow up these projects. There's a lot of money at stake here, so I want to make sure that somebody is able to sign to get that money released, or it'll delay those projects enormous. And this would be even the money that's going to be released in the very near future. December 3rd, they're starting the pump upgrades. And that project will only take about a week. And at that point, they're gonna want money released. So we need to get this resolution passed so somebody can sign for that money.
So, if we make the resolution, let's say that the solicitor be the signatory, but the solicitor changes, it's not Rich anymore,
It's not name specific, it is title specific.
okay?
That's why I put it this way. They wanted title specific, they didn't want names.
Okay,
So anyone sitting in any of those four positions could legally sign.
We still have two authorized people on that. I am one and Diana is the other. And this would also involve our PennDOT grants that we have too for fuel systems, liquid fuels.
No.
No.
we designate to?
Well, can't sign anymore. They are able to make changes in the dot grant system, but they cannot sign for the release of funds. That's why it's imperative that we do this so that funds can be released.
When, if I may, when the authority dissolved, okay, any time that I needed anything, I went down to the city manager, because now it's the city's, and told Larry what we needed to do, and he would either say, give me authorization to move funds, because I took care of the grant system at the time I was out there. Okay.
Yep.
All clear? Any questions?
I'm wondering who we should designate. Are we gonna decide at the next meeting?
No, I guess maybe you didn't understand. I am listing all 4 of these titles, any one of those 4. And they said that we have to be very careful. I can't say mayor and city manager. I need to say mayor or city manager or city solicitor. So any one of those 4 designated titles, person who holds that can make those signatures.
Thank you.
Did they think that that would get cumbersome?
They didn't have a problem, they preferred it. They don't want any issues down the road. They want it so that it's smooth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Council Bill 8 of 2019, setting the 2020 tax rate.
And of course, everyone knows there's no, if we pass the budget, there's no tax increase. So this would be the first reading of saying that there's no tax increase, the tax remains the same.
All right. Council Bill 9 of 2019-2020 budget.
Has to be passed by the end of the year, so the first reading has to be next Tuesday and the second reading in December. But the law says pass before the end of December.
On track to do that. Board and commission expirations. What do we have on that?
We have several. We have 2 openings on the Board of Health, 2 openings on the Shade Tree, 1 opening on the Planning, and 1 opening on the Code of Appeals. Now, we have sent letters out to the people who hold those positions, and we haven't heard back yet whether they want to continue on those boards. Hope to hear back soon from them. I don't know what your wishes are. Do you wish us to advertise after we see who's left, where the spots are we need? I mean, I assume if they're already on there, you would be good with keeping them on there, or do you want to totally advertise?
I think we need to advertise like we've done in the past.
I would agree.
Yes.
Okay, we'll put it out there.
Moving on, December meeting schedule.
Well, since our next meeting scheduled, our December vote meeting for our second reading of the budget falls on Christmas Eve. We had a brief discussion at the last meeting. We could move it to Monday without interrupting the time period that's required between readings. I don't know if we could, I think that's about as soon up we could move it. We could move it after Christmas. But I think in order, am I right, Diana, in order to make the 30 days, we can't go any before.
We don't need the 30 days.
We don't need the 30 days. We don't?
Correct?
No, we don't.
So we can move it up to the week prior?
It's our work session.
You don't need 30 days between the first.
First and second reading. I thought,
Could you
I
do
thought
like
we
the
did
work
too.
session on a Tuesday and the vote meeting on a Wednesday, or just do it, you know what I mean?
Well, if it's changed, it has to be advertised, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
that's why we need
What
to.
is the time limit on that?
No fewer than 7 days.
Oh. Well, I guess personally, I would propose to move them both into the same week.
Same night or different?
Well,
One night
that's-
the next night?
That's open for discussion.
Okay.
So Bill,
the same week as December 24th, or the same week as the work session?
Same week as the work session.
Okay.
Because people travel and they have family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking after the 23rd, but, excuse me, I'm wrong month. 21st, it's gonna be,
So what's the, I'm looking at your calendar.
so 17th is our work session, so I would say, unless you wanna, anybody really wants to do a marathon night, I would recommend the Wednesday or Thursday.
Can we cancel the work session and just do the vote meeting?
Good.
Cancel the work session and just do the vote meeting on the day of the work session.
What if we wanna bring something up next month instead of, you need the work session to bring in
Still very vote.
new things for discussion?
Not from a legal standpoint, I mean, we could talk about things prior to the vote, as far as that goes. I mean, we're not really limited to what we can
I'd
say.
rather have one long day, one long meeting.
Yeah. I agree.
Am I correct, Rich? We could do that both in one night?
Good. Combined meeting.
One long night and get it done with.
Yeah.
Okay, that
Tuesday the
sounds like-
17th? Advertise it so.
So we're still gonna start at 6, it's just gonna go longer.
Depending on what's, we have the, usually December is not a whole lot to discuss anyway, so I don't project it would be a real long meeting anyway.
Okay. So just the same 6 p.m.
I think, that's good with me, whatever you guys want.
So the meeting would be, a two-part thing. We do any work session stuff, then it adjourn to,
To a meeting.
Okay, you got what you need, Diana, for the agenda? Moving on, public input. Limited to city taxpayers only, 5-minute time limit, half hour overall. Yes, Jim?
Yeah, James Elliott, 306 North Franklin Street. This note is from a concerned citizen. I'm reading it on their behalf, and it speaks for many, many people. As the year closes, and in honor of the national and local group, thank you for the overwhelming support. Voting is a silent act of speaking out for those who cannot vote, standing for the silent. Thank you that 72% of the people stood up against the biggest bully this town has ever had in leadership. Thank you for seeing her for who she truly was and ensuring a new group standing with the overwhelming supermajority. Thank you for the ordinary citizens that stepped forward and took a record number of shots, stood tall, and are going to move Titusville forward.
If I may.
You may.
My question is, if you're going to read something like that, why do you not say who wrote it?
It was from a concerned citizen. It doesn't matter who wrote it. It's from everybody.
Yes, it does. When you speak, you're supposed to announce who's writing it, who's saying it.
Alright, move on.
I can speak for other people in Titusville.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Moving on, unless we have any other objections or comments to be made, we will adjourn to a budget work session number 2.
Ask the airport guy if he wants to speak.
Oh, I apologize. Yeah, that kind of fell off the agenda, didn't it?
Well,
Or not?
he was going to speak in the public comment.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Thank you for recognition. After I speak my 5 minutes, I got a couple questions that I'd like to have answered.
Nice
Again.
handball.
Can the city repeat the
What's that?
PA
Nice handball.
grants,
From him to you.
type of positions?
What do you mean?
It seems that it wasn't quite recognized.
I
And
put it-
also, when Rick Beath performs the assessment to verify that he
I don't
has
know, like he
all of
had-
the bid documents
Why'd he,
that were advertised so that he can incorporate
Hold on
that.
one second.
Hang on.
We can't hear.
Folks, can we please keep it quiet, respect
That's my guy.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so the two front questions. Also, I want to cover a few things that have occurred at the airport since my being hired in August. I attended a Titusville Aero Club Incorporated meeting. The presiding member deemed that the meeting was open to the public. There were other members of the public present, so no expectation of privacy. Of course, this was also before the meeting was officially commenced. And present was John Crouch, who described to me the PAC, moving Titusville forward. And I would categorize it as a vendetta that would have been in place by the president of that PAC against the city manager. So that's, to be specific and name names, that's Larry Weldon against Larry Manhouse. Further went on to describe that the three candidates, now they weren't present, so Crouch and Payton were not present, so they, Crouch was present. Gordon, thank you. All right. He described that they had an agenda that once they were installed, their first objective was to terminate the city manager, replace him with somebody that they knew would then terminate all the employees. And he said that very specifically, all the employees that Larry had hired. And I'm one of those. Also, shortly after I was hired, I received an anonymous call indicating that the city should look into a particular hangar structure on the airport for ownership rights. And also a witness came forward and said that they had seen destruction of records at the airport. These two items align together because the property in question, there's a lot that's leased to a verdict who's been paying rent, and yet the hangar structure is still under the name of the airport authority. Now, the revenues in question for the taxation of the hangar would be Cherry Tree Township and Venango County. Jurisdiction is over there. I made what I deemed would be the correct contacts to both law enforcement and to the county level. And 2 months later, there's been no activity on that. The assessor says that they will not transfer the ownership taxation responsibility to the fellow named Burdick without documentation showing that he actually has ownership of that hangar. Again, we don't have any records showing that even the airport authority owns the hangar. There are no records. So I think that, and just some opinion now, the three new council members, they may have been influenced heavily by the PAC and the PAC agenda, but once they are seated, I've gotten appraisal of them as being good people and that they will do the right thing. I pray that will happen. So I'd like to formally announce that I am going to relinquish my seat the minute after Larry. I do not want to be here for any reprisal. I want to say this. James Kuhn and Mike Podensky came to the airport, and Mike Podensky threatened that the witness and I would be falsely accused of using drugs at the airport, and that's intolerable. So I can't stick around for reprisal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ray.
Bill, I have one more, or a couple more questions. What's the address for Ray? What's his home address? Did he give his home address for the airport manager?
Raise an employee of the city.
I know, but what's his home address? Okay. When is Ray's term up? Isn't it at the end of the year anyways? The agreement was $20,000 till the end of the year to be renegotiated. No? When's his term up?
He does not have a term.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
On behalf of Ray Gurnee, my name's Anthony Rotondo, and I live across the street from the airport. And I was mentioned in that letter, and there's no way that we were doing any kind of drugs there. And as far as you guys are concerned, seriously. Kenny, like I said, what is a volunteer? How many people in here actually use the airport besides you, Councilwoman? Besides you, Larry?
What's his address? City
I
taxpayers
was
only.
invited here
That's right.
to defend Ray Gurnee. Was I was mentioned in the letter.
Deputy
This-
Mayor,
Mike Podensky was
he's
not
not a citizen
at
of
the
Titusville.
airport. Mike Podensky was not at the airport
He's
to
not
make
even a
any
city
kind
taxpayer.
of accusations. The only ones that were there was this man here
Absurd.
and Jim Kuhn, and they're making the accusation.
This is absurd.
It's not absurd. It's my turn to speak, and you keep your yap shut.
You
for a
don't even
minute.
live in town and pay taxes.
I don't care. I shop here.
Taxes either.
He don't live here. He don't live here.
They're not speaking.
And I'm not.
Well, I seen him hand
They're
you that letter.
respectful.
Shut up.
Let me see that letter, Kenny.
I printed it up. It's none of
Yeah.
your business.
Sure.
Okay,
I don't know.
okay,
You're
order,
harassing
Actually,
us.
how many of you folks fly?
order, please. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
your
Ray.
input, and I understand you perfectly.
What a joke.
Any more public input?
I'd just like to make a comment, Mr. Mayor. I sat on city council, I was one that appointed you to, be the manager. I've been some things I might not agreed with, but I would still support you 100%. I hate to see that, you're leaving, understand, but I think what you did for the city was just did a nice job. I couldn't ask for anything better, so thank you for your time and everything. I appreciate it. I know this election to me was more of a mockery of Titusville. It was just, to me, it's embarrassment.
It sure is.
But I do support you, and I still would. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Dan Hasbrook, I live at 804 North First Street. I kind of like tussle here whether or not to say stuff, you know, and because like growing up, like I'm probably one of the younger people here. I got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old that I'm trying to teach how to treat people, and I don't necessarily say I agree or disagree with what happens here, you know, but can people honestly say this is what we should teach our kids on how to handle situations? I mean, I look at it that way, we have a wonderful school here. Do I agree with everything? Probably not. We have a wonderful, I might not agree with everything that goes on, but I respect you. And the fact that people talk out and say whatever they want to say, there's a certain way we hold meetings. I mean, I don't go to a lot of meetings, but there must be a certain way that you handle everything. And it's kind of a joke, you know, you come to these and this is the type of thing that we deal with. But like I said, I love this town. I wish I could do more to help, but I'm a father raising a 10 and 8-year-old, and I'm busy with baseball and soccer and doing my thing. So this isn't a part of it that could help, and we vote for people that we feel can take care of things without me having to blow fire down your back constantly, you know? That's the respect part, and I respect every one of you. I respect what you do. Larry, I'm sorry to see you go. I mean, it seems like that politics is weird because it's like someone's lying to you. Like I have no reason to believe that any of you were lying to me. Why would I vote you guys in and you guys sit up there and lie straight to my face, but the next person will say that you're completely wrong. So it's a tough situation. But the big thing is I just do appreciate it. I respect the position you're in. It's not a position I'd like to be in. It's not an easy position. I feel that people that speak out sometimes need to be in your position. And it's not an easy thing to do. So I appreciate it. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
I'd like to just say something. My name is Anna, 518 Maple Street. And I appreciate what Mr. Hafford just said. And when he made the statement, somebody's lying to you. And that is so true. And how do you find out the truth? And Mayor Smith has kind of like plummeted in our heads over and over, especially on her Facebook page, fact check. And that is what I have done. And each one of us have a responsibility to do that ourselves. See who's telling the truth. And I want to say something here. This is very heavy. Always follow the money. When you follow the money, the trail to where it ends, people can be bought, votes can be bought. And I am really, really going to miss Larry as our city manager. He has done a phenomenal job taking us from near bankruptcy to almost debt-free. I mean, that is amazing. And paying cash for everything, not going into debt. Those are key things that are important. Getting us to the place where our city can now be developed. I really appreciate that, and that's not a light thing. And your integrity too. I feel bad where our city is going now with the people that we are having come in, and the lack of integrity for sure has been blatant on Facebook and in writing and verbally. And so I just hope that somehow people will wake up and see that, you know, we need to change direction if our town is going to be a town of integrity and safety where we want our kids to grow up and be proud of. So, thank you, President Council, for everything you've done. I really appreciate it.